Okay. You are good to go.
Relax.
Mhm.
All right, I will go ahead and call us to order. It is November 14th, 2024. Mr. Co-Chair, thank you for being here. Since we're running a few minutes behind, I'd say let's go ahead and jump right into a project update with Rachel.
Thank you. Thank you all for having us today. You've got a couple familiar faces on this side, and then we have a new face that I want to introduce. This is Sarah Duell. She's our Chief Operating Officer at Dimensional Innovations. She wanted to come and see the work and meet the team. We've been lucky enough to working with you guys for several years now. So excited for Sarah to see all of this live. So thank you for allowing us to come back, a new face to come to.
Good morning. Thank you for having us. Thank you for having me.
So we will just go ahead and dive in. We've got several things we want to talk about today, and actually the full project. So I know we've kind of done different sections of the project for different subcommittee meetings. We will give you a quick signage and wayfinding update, static exhibit update, digital exhibit update, and civics lab update. So that hits every part of the project. We'll start with signage and wayfinding. So there's a lot of install that's been happening. You've probably seen a lot, and we're actually going to spend a lot of time as we walk through and do a walk at the end of this meeting, show some of the great work that's already gone up. So we probably won't spend too much time on the agenda for package 1 and package 2. And we'll get started here. Sorry, I was seeing some of our team members are having some technical difficulties, but they're getting it figured out. Nigel, do you want to talk through some of the temporary signage and coming soon signage that's coming?
Yeah, there's a few instances where what we have currently is not the final version, or it references stuff that's not final. So in this case, some of the maps we need to put on something indicates it's well, first of all, I'm sorry, I just raced in. Good morning, everyone. Hello, nice to see you all. There's tiny little specks on my screen. So we're suggesting we're going to implement this this small removable sticker up in the top right hand corner, this little dog ear temporary signage. And then if we look at the next couple of slides, we've got all these plans for the civics lab. So if we look at the next slide, there we go. We're just gonna put an opaque frosted on the glass so you can't see through, and then just the gold type indicating the civics lab will be coming in 2025. And then there's a number of instances on panels that are throughout the building that are already installed that reference interactive exhibits that are on pace to come in 2025, but aren't currently available. So we don't want someone to read something that suggests they go look at something and then not find it. So we wanted to indicate on here with this simple, also removable gold sticker that says coming soon, the interactive exhibits highlighted on this panel will be installed in 2025. So it's just to make sure that that we don't provide them a disappointing experience while they wait for everything to progress and finalize in the building. That, I think, covers those. Was there any others? I think that was it.
Yeah, that was it. And I think it's a great sign that you've already had some guests that have said, hey, where's the civics lab? Or hey, where's this thing? And so that's great. It hasn't been up very long and we're already getting people actually reading the whole thing. The plan is working, guys. It is working.
So just, I got a note from Representative Sherwood, who is speaking at a forum over in Laramie today, so she can't be here, but she was here the other day and was quite tickled that our docents are studying up, looking at the panels and making sure they're up to speed. So I thought that was pretty cute.
That's great. Yeah, we've really enjoyed being able to walk in and watch visitors read and interact with them. So yeah, you've seen several things between the mobile panels, keeping off the skylights, trying to keep some safety there as well. Quad panels that are up. Hopefully you've been able to see all of this. With the panels that you see here on the left, just a reminder that those are mobile. I wouldn't say they're the easiest to move around, which is intentional for safety. But there are, when we're in session and when we're not in session, different places where they will be. So plans in place for that. excited for those to be up and seeing people interact with them. I did want to give you a heads up. There's a couple more that are still going through our final process. So there's some half wall panels and wall panels between the auditorium, role of media, the Best of Wyoming, and then the PMR half wall panel. Best of Wyoming, I will say, is a great highlight, but we couldn't fit Team Wyoming in there. The whole capital is the Best of Wyoming, I would say. But that will be coming to the final stage for final review and final approval of copy and design. Again, we're going to hit a lot of this as we do the walkthrough because you're seeing a lot of it come to life now. Flying through here. We're making that free time.
Can I interject real quick? Could we make sure to have Emilio and Chris Jones as presenters because they will have speaking parts later? Thank you. Sorry.
No, okay. So portraits of history, we'll spend a little bit of time on that in our last discussion. So we've been able to show progress on this the last couple meetings. Location of where it's at, but previously you were able to see some of the initial designs and concepts and overall ideas for stories. As we get further into design, just want to show you where that design refinement is happening. So Nigel, I'll let you talk through that.
Yeah, this has been a lot of fun to develop this into a unique space inside the vault there. We're looking at materials that seem relevant to the building's architecture and time period, and also to create a great sound control within the room so that the sound doesn't bleed into the offices adjacent, and also to make it feel like this intimate theater. So we're using light fixtures from the period, yet to be determined which exact light fixture. We're using material from William Morris, the founder of the arts and crafts movement, from fabrics that he designed in 1875. So the time periods are just perfect. And then these beautiful lush curtains, all of which will help to control the sound, as well as the simple gold frames that will make those screens in those 4 screens in there feel like they're artwork before they kind of come magically to life. If we start to look through the pages, you start to see how that evolves on each one of the different walls. The little red box indicating on the map there tells you what part of the room we're looking at. But right now we're looking back towards the door we just came through, which is the vault door, where we have that subtle fabric that surrounds the door. We have a valance of curtain across the top with some lighting, and then a full curtain down the right side. There's this column which you see in the photograph in the top right that we've clad in wood casing so that it looks more intentional and architecturally significant. Then if we turn our heads to the right towards the second door, then we have a bit of a bump out which highlights a more dynamic pattern. We reiterate that this is the Portraits of History gallery with a light fixture directly above. Then we go back to the curtains, turn around again, and start to face south. And that's where our first screen comes up. It's framed in this beautiful gold frame, but the screen itself is a touch screen. No, it's not a touch screen. It's a video screen, image screen. With the curtains that frame it on either side and a fabric covered sound baffling panel directly behind it, with the small interactive buttons set below it in a sort of wood plaque. That curtain then goes around that first corner, which you see on the right side in the image. And then this is the wall that you see as you walk through the door of the vault, where we'll have a rotating imagery and language that will help encourage people to walk through the door and start to experience what's happening inside that room. And then if you turn again, then to the west, that's where the 2 other screens that tell stories are. You can see a little detail of the interactive panel, 3 breast buttons that will allow different types of functionality on the screen as the stories adapt and change over time. That pretty much walks you through the space. I'm really excited about where we've landed with the materials and the approach.
Yeah, I really feel this is beautiful, and as Nigel said, really fits into the aesthetic and everything with the timing of the building, or the era of the building. When we last talked, we mentioned the idle states that we were looking at, and we have a story that hits each of the main industries for Wyoming between agriculture, tourism, and mining. And we've been able to work with the core team to really hone in on what those images should be to make those stories come to life as we picked out the stories, got into the details of the stories. We also mentioned last month that Nathan has immediately come in and helped collaborate and make an impact. So want to highlight Nathan's work here in helping us get to these images. Nathan, if you want to talk a little bit about it.
Sure. Thank you, Rachel, Madam Chairman, Mr. Chairman. I'm excited to share these initial idle state images. Core team talked a lot about what images would be used to best highlight these stories, and went through a number of museum collections throughout the state, looking to see what images were out there and would tell these stories. And we came across the images that you see for tourism and mining. So for tourism, we have reached out to the National Museum of Wildlife Art in Jackson. This piece is called Jackson Lake and the Tetons by John Ferry, circa 1900. And we feel it pairs well with Potter's Bowl. And excited to share that in both instances, both of these museums have been ecstatic to be part of it, and they've both waived all of their fees associated with this. So they're happy to be on board. And then mining, as you can imagine, it's tricky to find an oil painting of mining, and especially that's reminiscent of the Carissa and mines over in South Pass. And this piece called Panning Gold, Wyoming by William Lee, done in about 1949, comes from the Whitney Western Art Museum at the Buffalo Bill Center of the West, and brings to life just that very early stage of mining that would then develop into what we now know as the mining history of South Pass. So again, Buffalo Bill Center of the West has been excited to be part of this project and to waive all of their fees as well. So we're excited to present these images as initial idle state considerations.
So I'm sorry I missed the front end a little bit. These are not pieces that are on loan or anything. Certainly the left side is not, but like the mining, is that a reproductive image of that painting or?
Correct. Great question. Yeah. So these are digital on screens, and this will have the great kind of motion activation. I'm blanking on that word. Starts with a P.
Parallax.
Thank you. Thank you. The parallax treatment. And that was an interesting piece to bring up with these institutions is bringing those pieces digitally to life. And it requires, because institutions are sensitive about what modifications are done to pieces of artwork. So the fact that they were willing to have those just subtle changes taken into account is wonderful.
That's awesome. Really good.
I think we've stressed how appreciative we've been of all the collaboration that has happened through a lot of different team members, and Nathan definitely has been pulling his weight since we last spoke to get us to this point.
And Mr. Chairman, I might add that this is like yet another little subtle piece of the concept for why you all advocated for a capital curator. It's to bring Wyoming into the capital. And so Nathan is hitting the ground running and already made a lot of great connections with museums around the state.
Terrific.
Mr. Chairman, slightly for you guys, are we mentioning the Buffalo Bill Center of the West or the National Wildlife Museum? Are we thanking them anywhere publicly for the picture, for the portraits?
Yeah,
From a tourism perspective, it's always good for a little nod.
Yeah.
You're talking about some kind of thing next to the video screen or something that says where that image.
Like where we got something that just acknowledges that this photo or this painting is at the National Museum of Wildlife Art or the Buffalo Bill Center.
Yeah, absolutely, Mr. Chairman, Madam Chairman. So they do have credit requirements that will run, and we've talked with them a little bit, but DI has talked with them a little bit about how best they want those incorporated, or to see kind of what their willingness is to, whether it's, a QR code or a credit at the end or anything like that. No, absolutely.
Great point.
You guys have never been to the National Wildlife Museum in Jackson. It is one of the most rated places in the state. It is phenomenal. Like what they've done up there is unbelievable.
Huh.
And I don't even like museums. I don't know how big that museum is. Buffalo Bill Center of the West speaks for itself, and it's amazing too, but.
We will keep moving forward here. So with these 3 stories, we've talked about overall what we wanted those stories to accomplish, again, hitting on the main industries that are happening within Wyoming. We've been able to make a lot of progress on the agriculture story. So Chris Jones, who was here last month and walked through some of the visual effects that we were doing and how we would bring all of these stories to life, is going to walk you through the script that we have for the agriculture story. Chris?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Thanks, Rachel. Yeah, so one thing before we get into this, Nathan was telling you about those idle state images. So each one of these stories is going to start and end with that idle state image. So as someone walks into the room and walks up to one of these screens, it's going to, when they walk up to it, that image is going to be up on screen, and then there will be some sort of a trigger to start the video, most likely a motion sensor or something. Then it will go through the video, and then it will end up resolving back into that same image. So when we're writing these scripts, we are keeping that in mind and trying to start and end these stories kind of relating to that image, if that makes sense. So there are a few audio notes in here, just kind of loose suggestions for now, but we'll refine those, what those kind of audio cues are as we get into storyboards. But I will go ahead and get into this. It's clocking in about 90 seconds, which is our target for each one of these stories. So first, this is going to start with the sound of 2 gunshots, followed by this excited murmur of male voices, and then the VO will start. So in 1895, John Coble shot a bull right inside the opulent Cheyenne Club. The proud bovine survived and even lives on today, unbothered by the bullet hole that gives away his place in Wyoming history. Coble fired a few rounds after perhaps one too many rounds. He was agitated that the painting depicted European milking stock rather than the sturdy beef cattle of the American West. Perhaps his real discomfort came from the realization that times were changing and not in favor of Wyoming's cattle-owning elite. The Cheyenne Club, founded in 1880, had been their sanctuary. And then we'll hear the sound of champagne popping, maybe some laughter that kind of fades into some somber music. But the days of limitless prosperity were over. The brutal winter of 1886 to 87 had culled both herds and fortunes. As their empires crumbled, the cattle barons lashed out. They blamed rustlers and decided for themselves who was guilty of the crime. Some homesteaders challenged their dominion over the open range and paid the price. Violence intensified until a private army of cattle owners and hired gunmen invaded Johnson County in 1892, intent on eliminating supposed thieves. The so-called rustlers fought back, and Wyoming's range war had begun in earnest. Then we'll have a little bit of a dramatic shift in music as it becomes more intense and then kind of fades back. The cattlemen's invasion was thwarted, weakening their iron grip on Wyoming's destiny, but none were convicted of crimes. Their tactics went underground as they turned to gunslingers like Tom Horn to target their enemies, which only hastened their downfall. Horn's execution in 1903 marked the end of an era. The bullet holes in Potter's Bowl tell a much larger story of the battle for cattle across the vast Wyoming landscape. Today, that painting hangs in the governor's office, a reminder of the conflict that forged our state's identity. Even the mighty cattle barons weren't above the law, but it took a decade for justice to catch up with them.
Oh, that's great.
That is awesome. That is really, really good.
Those are the golden pipes of Chris Jones.
I think he's sitting in the there too. So in front of like some people. Good job, Chris.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Using your radio voice.
Yeah. I'll be auditioning for the role.
Don't give them ideas to go elsewhere.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Chairman, sorry, Rosemary Nardinez here. Do we need to acknowledge that the war took place in Johnson County? Like the Johnson County War is a very significant Or does it say Johnson
Yeah.
County?
It does.
Oh, I skipped over it, sorry. Somehow missed it, thanks.
Okay, that's a great point. So as we go through, it's a great segue, actually. As we go through and want to craft the script for mining and for tourism, we've got a lot of points that we know that we want to try to hit on and try to figure out what matches up with the visuals that we have selected. So that is a whole process that gets to what that script is. So the core team, advanced core team, there's so many people that have been a part of this collaborative process. We'll make sure to have points in there that do hit on tourism.
Well, it was gorgeous. I don't know how I missed Johnson County, sorry. Like, that's such a significant,
So well done. Really good.
Yeah. it's great.
So we'll continue to make progress on the other two stories. We're with this story, we'll go into voiceover production. So although Chris does have a great voice, we are looking at other voiceover talents as well.
This made him sad.
Sorry, Chris, or maybe Chris is the only one. We'll talk about that offline, Chris, don't worry. You're
Yes,
still
no,
beloved.
you know that, Patrick, sorry.
So we'll continue through production, but excited about where this particular activation is headed. Okay, now we'll move on to the rest of the digital activations. So we showed some refresh of this the other day, I guess the other day, last month, seems like the other day. We've made a lot of progress behind the scenes. So all the great decisions in terms of color choices and tone and content, that is all, everything that has happened already for packages 1 and package 2 is being rolled into package 3. So we're gonna go through the capital kiosk, I know how to speak today, Constitution kiosk, and then the progress of foundation or foundations of progress, the timeline. So we'll walk through that. That's really to do another refresher because there will be some text templates that come through file stage for approval. But excited about what's been happening there. We're executing the vision that has been created and developed here collaboratively with this team. And we're at the point where we are refining all of those decisions. So Emilio, I'll kick it off to you, and we'll start with capital kiosks.
Yeah, hi everyone. Like Rachel said, we have been working very diligently. I can speak today too. On like making sure all the design decisions that have been done before for package 1 and 2 have carried over. They're represented in digital design. So capital kiosks are moving along. Like we have some final stuff that tends to call out at the bottom there, but just fine tuning it, making sure we don't miss any of the smaller details. There will be some text templates that are coming along for these particular sections, the points of interest and the dome drone section, just to review the content that we're going to be presenting to visitors.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think drone, you saw some of the initial visuals several months ago. So that will have a lot of really great visuals to go along with it. Just kind of can interact with and play with. And then for the Constitution kiosk, same thing. We're moving through design and content. So you'll see things come through file stage. Emilio?
Right. Yeah. And then because we're so close on design, on content, we have reviewed it a few times. We have started, like, we're moving into development. So we're starting to play the back end, starting to play with some things like how do we make the book interactive and all those things.
1 second, Emilio, we have a question.
So I
Yeah.
on the dome drones,
Oh, yeah.
for example, if they bring classes into this room, will I be able to have the dome drones on both of these screens for demonstration?
We talked through that, and these are not touch screens. So right now, no, but we are looking at that as part of as part of package 5.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Nicholas, these actually are touch screens, but it's probably something we would look at as part of package 4 of how Civics Lab and this room work together, or even package 5 for new scope, depending on price. And we are tracking that as part of your additional scope requested.
We do love the idea of bringing this as
Yeah.
many places as we possibly can. So
You have to
constitution,
put it against the whole wall. You know.
The whole virtual reality the whole time they're in here.
yeah. So Constitution kiosk will be in the historic Supreme Court. This was the last version of the design that was presented and approved. And as Emilio was saying, we're taking the content buckets that we have, or categories that we previously approved, and we're working through what the content points are. And that's what we're working on refining and will be coming to you. Anything else on the Constitution kiosk, Emilio?
Nope, that's where we're at.
And as a reminder, this will also be in the civics lab as well, the interactive, in both places. And then finally, for foundations of progress, same thing, lots of content happening behind the scenes that we're going to bring forward for you to look at through file stage. Emilio?
Reminder where it is. This is what it will look like. So there'll be a panel adjacent to the screen, and yep. So breakdown of what the story, the way each decade will break out, stuff that we've looked at before. So content will rotate, but here are all the decades and all the stories. This is a lot of work that went into this. And yeah, it's a design moved along. We are trying to keep this bring a little more color and life into this one, but trying to bring in some of those colors that we've chosen for the panels and tied into the decades. And that's one of probably the biggest jump from the last time maybe that you've seen this. But yeah, I mean, it's moving along. We're excited about bringing this to life, all of these.
So those are the digital activation.
I would just add that we're at a pretty cool time with everything that you just saw, and that it's going from like flat design to, and when we say going into development, for those of you who are not UX UI designers, is that like we are now doing the ones and zeros programming that goes on behind the scenes to make these things really become something that is interactive. So that's an exciting time for us. The next, you guys will in the near future start to see those as interactive pieces versus just flat screens that you don't, and we'll be able to, with the core team, make decisions about how, it functions and size of buttons and those sort of like details. But pretty cool. That's a milestone in that part of the project for us. So exciting for us.
As we go into dev, there's a bit of a heads down, got to do the work. So you won't see updates quite as frequently when we're doing that, but we do pick our head up, show progress, so you can see where we are at different points in time.
A lot of headphones,
A lot of
a
headphones.
lot of snacks, and a lot of Red Bull.
That foundations for progress piece, you guys, I think that's gonna be one of the real centerpieces of everything that we've done over these last 2 or 3 years. Along with that, everything about the vault this morning really has me excited as well. Those two things. So this morning, we're talking about really some of the biggest feathers in the bonnet, right? I mean, it's just really fun to think about and envision what's gonna take place there. So yeah, thanks for all of that. Can't wait to see the progress.
Absolutely. I think the kiosk we're trying to make sure is a flexible canvas so you can continue to add stories, because your story does not stop the day that we launch and the day that we install. Wyoming will continue to have wonderful stories that you want to incorporate. So we're very excited to give you that flexibility, ease of work behind the scenes on the CMS. We've made up a lot of time. We're moving through fast. So if I'm going too fast, please slow me down. But we also wanted to talk through Civics Lab. So when we last spoke about Civics Lab, we talked about the one thing that this is your government. And this is the most important title is citizen. So we want to make sure that as we drive towards this, we really hit on the overall theme of simplify. There's so much that we can do within this area, but we really have to keep it at a Civics 101. And I think that's what we keep getting excited about and driving towards and making sure that we're keeping that type of mentality so that whether it's a kiddo, whether it's a 5th grader, a 12th grader, or a 40-year-old, that we are making sure that we're hitting those singular points. So as we go through, this is meant to be, so you can't see it very well. Because we are still working on it, but we're looking at how we really program that space. And so the individual messages, and then what's the right way for that message to come to life, because people learn in a lot of different ways. So some will be reading, some will be interactive. There's a lot of different ways that we can bring these messages to life. Some can be more gamified. So when you see this in December, we will continue to be moving this forward and getting to concepts that bring again, all the hard work that this team, this collective team and subcommittee have worked on to get to this point. You will start to see that come to life as we refine overall concepts and design. And those are the updates from DI in terms of packages 1 through 4. So lots of momentum, lots of things that you're seeing on the ground, lots of things that I know are behind the scenes, but will continue to be coming to you for approval.
So this is pretty elementary stuff, but I was pleased when Nigel said earlier that I didn't realize that we were doing anything on the civics lab front, but I love the idea of the frosted glass and the civics lab is coming soon, and I just think that plays really well to people to know that, hey, we're still working on this. And chances are we're always going to be working. Right.
Yeah.
The only thing is if we put coming in 2025,
We're
we gotta
locked
have
in.
it.
Yeah, folks, we
Yeah, but it does give that little bit of piquing their interest and hopefully creating repeat visits.
Yeah. It's great stuff. Really, really good.
We're very grateful for all the collaboration that's been happening. Really excited about the progress.
We are moving right along. So again, and at one sort of general, this may sound a little wishy-washy, but I don't mean it to, as we proceed towards the end of the year and the legislature, we will probably have hopefully minimized, but some downtime where we don't know the legislative appointments on this committee. I don't have any reason to believe the executive branch appointments would change. But I do think and so appreciate DI's dedication. I think it'll be a time where hopefully we've given you everything we need or you need, and go for it, proceed. I think this committee, although it has been bumpy to get there, has given ultimately clear direction. And I hope that even in that time of maybe a little bit of downtime for us, that hopefully that doesn't hold you up, and that all of that good work can proceed.
Absolutely. We'll continue to move forward. We're very proud of the work that has happened, and we want all of you to feel the same.
Yep. Okay, Wendy, do you want to talk about package 5?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. I think that's actually a nice roll off into other things that will be coming in the future. And we have had a lot of those discussions already with the DI team about how everything direction that you have provided from a design standpoint for package 1 and package 2, they will be applying that all in package 3. All of the content outlines that you've already reviewed, that is what they'll be developing from. You'll have some things you will see between now and the end of the year with one more meeting, kind of to try to keep firming this up. And then for DI to be able to meet its installation timelines next year, you will, during session, even if we do get a new legislative members appointed right away, we know that you do not have time to review hundreds and hundreds of pages of work. So we'll make sure that we're touching in with whatever the committee looks like at that point briefly, but basically implementing the direction that you've provided through the end of the year. So that work will carry DI forward for both package 3 and then Civics Lab package 4. And then next month, and Brandon's not here, but Dave Webb is from Construction Management Division. As you know, this subcommittee has been talking for several months and actually for several years about things that originally, you may recall, we had a parking lot at the start of this project. One of those elements was what we deemed collateral materials. So all of the physical exhibits will be up, all the digital exhibits will be up, but collateral materials are things like a tour booklet that matches the new brand standards and actually describes what there is to see and do in the building. A more robust Capitol tour website that, again, as we've talked to DI about, a multi-branch effort is great, and then sometimes it becomes difficult because we all have different systems. So part of what DI is developing that's currently in scope is an underlying system called a content management system, a CMS. And from there, what is not in scope and what we're looking at for a package 5, a new package, is to have a front-facing website. So that as tourists are coming to the state right now, or even just visitors from across Wyoming, right now there's several places. If you stick in Google Wyoming Capitol, you may get a Department of Administration and Information site, you may get the LSO site. So trying to consolidate that experience. There's all of these fun things that you have requested to be put in the exhibits for kids, like finding the fossils, finding different faces throughout the building. A junior ranger book, something physical that kids can hold on to. Those are the kind of concepts for things that were basically put aside till we saw how far we were in this project. There are some additional funds that construction management holds. And so the idea would be we're working with DI and we'll come back to you in December with what that list is to enter into a change order. It would also include some physical components that you put in a parking lot. For example, there's a number of conference rooms in the Capitol. There's some conference room space in Herschler 1 West that's part of this conference experience down here. Those were put on hold. And I think when you see the public meeting rooms today, there's a lot of bang for the buck in doing either imagery or historic images and the beautiful framing that DI has developed with that. So those are the types of things we'll be coming back to you. There's things like having the dome drone in here. I have a list I've been tracking throughout the last couple of years. Every time you guys bring something up that's not in scope, the interactive map out here in the extension corridor, all of those things will be coming back to you next month, and we'll be working with DI on pricing those out.
When of next month will it happen?
Your last meeting will be December 17th. Now, construction management, Brandon's not here today, but, and Dave may be able to speak to this, but if conceptually at that December meeting, you guys approve that you'd like to go forward, then construction management.
So what I'm thinking about, it would be nice to have a presentation during appropriations, which is the week before. And because at that appropriations meeting will be both the new and the old new appropriations members. And to educate them about future projects and the need for it. And then to have the current appropriations committee put some more money into it.
And Mr. Chairman, Representative Nicholas, we can absolutely do that. Are you thinking that would be above and beyond the additional funding that Appropes put into the budget in, Dave, can you help me out? Was that 2023?
Well, the answer is you need to show us all the figures, and because if we're going to need it, for example, for the bundle 5, and that's gonna cost more, then the answer is absolutely.
Okay, that's great to know, Mr. Chairman, and Representative Nicholas, we will actually put that as our new date. We had kind of been looking at it the other way, that we'd see how much we could afford for what money we had left. So if you'd like to look at it priced out for all the possible things, we can certainly look at it that way too. David, did I misspeak on anything for construction management's next steps after the subcommittee would give any direction in December that we need to take into consideration?
You covered it.
Okay. Hopefully I'm not, and these guys are gonna do this, am I right?
Yeah, I think you covered it well.
Anyway, welcome, Dave. It's good to see you. Know how busy you guys have been. Put some miles on some cars, so. Yeah, I share the intent that the representative just outlined, our chairman of appropriations. And our friends from DI, I think you can tell we're sort of tiptoeing into a transition period of time. So, and that's all about the politics of what we do. We'll just have to see. I've strong-armed both of the representatives because that, as chairman, I get to do a little bit of that. Obviously, I hope that our committee continues as is. I think these two will offer to do it, hopefully. And I'm gonna offer to stay on, and if we don't, then you'll have different representation from the legislative branch, but you know, sure hope to be around to help finish this up. And so back to you.
And Mr. Chairman, this is not on your agenda, but related to the work of this committee, and Dave will be giving the acoustics update next, but I do want to mention that you've also, given your good work, have already been tasked with the acoustics project with some minor build outs, the broadcast studio, the reconfiguration of the art gallery down in this space. And earlier this interim, there was discussion about the work of this subcommittee and how it might be leveraged in the greater Capitol Square governance, which, as you all recall, we often cite the statute related to joint governance of the Capitol Square. And there's provisions in there where the Management Council and State Building Commission can enter into MOUs for joint management of things like visitor services and exhibits and wayfinding, which is essentially the actualization of this subcommittee, building preservation, building modifications. And the idea was floated that perhaps this subcommittee could perform that role as same you are now. You're a recommendation body to Management Council and to the State Building Commission, but that you could perhaps be the home for some of these other elements that there's really State Building Commission can ask their staff through construction management to enter into an MOU with the Management Council, but really the two bodies never really get to visit and hash things out. And so the vision is that this would be that body. And Management Council at their last meeting expressed support for that, as has the governor's office. And so we will be working with Construction Management Division on what an MOU would look like that basically would say any of these types of things would first go to this subcommittee to make recommendations back to the governance structure.
So, Madam Chairman, I think I hopefully speak a little bit for you. You can do that here in a moment, but I think that's a really great thing, and congratulations to every one of you, because it's because of the work that we've done that gives them the confidence that we can go forward and continue to do some work that I think represents our executive branch and our legislative branch. The co-chairman has a great history of being a part of the judiciary branch, so it just seems appropriate. But just know that we weren't willing to go anywhere without the ex officio members of this committee. You're just invaluable. And I think it's such a great representation of so many of the things that we do and that we need to have at the table. And so, Madam Chairman.
No, I agree. And I think some of the places that this committee has played that role have been some of the most painful, but also really important. And so I think that is a testament that that is not an easy, it's an important task, but not an easy one, because there's always going to be some push and pull between branches. But I think we are best set up.
Yeah, so, there's always that piece as to whether Representative Nicholas and I will be around, to join you in that effort. But I think it's a really appropriate group to take on some of the things that we've talked about that we know are coming in the future, not just here in the Capitol Square, but in this you know, on beyond that in the 6 or 7 block area, for example. Lots of things that this group, I think, could maybe play a role in helping bring people together, so. It's really good stuff, Wendy. And I appreciated confidence that, that our management council has shown to us, and of course, the governor and co-chairman take care of that front.
And Mr. Chairman, I was remiss in not mentioning that this was actually a suggestion of the governor. So I mentioned the management council side, but also shows great support from the executive branch side.
When you bump into him or when we do, we'll have to thank him for the confidence that he's shown. So. Any thoughts, Representative?
Lots of thoughts.
Yeah, specific to this, what do you think? What are your cautions? What are your thoughts going forward?
Well, I think we continue to plow ahead as fast and as furious as we can to get everything done we can. And
Madam Chairman, we're good.
So I think I'm trying to think here, we've sort of held off on a little bit more robust wayfinding walk and tour to see what's been put in. So do we want to head, that'll be last. So we still need acoustics. And then we'll probably go ahead and do public comment right after that. Does that make sense?
Madam Chairman, acoustics, so we received an updated proposal yesterday from Trainer and Avant. And they're gonna further the design is what the change order is for. And then also they'll be doing a presentation in the December meeting. We would have had a presentation today, but we had some discussion in October that we had to take care of before we get this proposal done. So at the December meeting, they're gonna plan on doing it remotely, but there will be a presentation on acoustics.
So Dave, just as a refresher, we've been able to accomplish some things here and there. It would be helpful for me as we go into meetings during which we'll be asked to give a little bit of a brief update of things. It would be really helpful to me to know, you know, what we did with our sound system, what we've been able to do here and there that has already helped. But of course, then we project to the fact that there's more to be done and it's on the way. So does that make sense?
That makes sense, Mr. Chairman. And if I remember correctly, we did have Ford in here doing some adjustments to the sound system, but we replaced some mics and some other items, but we haven't replaced speakers or added white noise for background or anything of that nature yet. And that's gonna be included in this package. They'll be discussing those items with you in December.
so same thing, when they present to JAC, we'll want to update on acoustic too, because that's one of the most important things, and that's the easiest one to get money for. Because it's direct impact on legislators, so they pay a little more attention to that stuff.
Well, as you are well aware, Dave, that was an initiative very much that in part came out of the Appropriations Committee, but certainly had the support of this Appropriations Committee, and without which we would not have been able to go forward. So I think there is a lot of interest there, and hopefully we'll be ready in December to really remind our Appropriations Committee that sits there today, but they're going to be handing that baton off to the next committee, and it's important that we help them know this is all of what we've been up to, and we sure don't want to drop the ball.
And Mr. Chairman, I might just give a quick refresher for what will be coming in December, which is that As you noted, we can update you on some of the work that Avant's done just to essentially tweak our existing AV system. And that bucket of work is called sound reinforcement. So it's about how much sound is projected in a space. They have done pretty much all they can do without, as Dave mentioned, replacing some of those components. There's some processors that are more robust. Those would be included in some of the recommendations for future scope. The other piece of sound reinforcement kind of ties in with what Trainer's designing, which is, and we'll use Joint Preparations Committee as kind of the ideal example of all the different solutions. So there, for example, may be additional ceiling speakers that are needed in joint appropriations to really project that sound where it needs to go. In addition, Trainer will be designing and coming back to you acoustical absorption materials. And that is the area where for this subcommittee and future subcommittees, that's really where the design and how it architecturally looks is going to become very important. And they'll have different ways they can look at doing that. And those acoustical absorption materials can include things like acoustical plaster panels. They can include fabric materials that absorb sound. And those are probably more design intensive and need more feedback from you as policymakers. The third bucket is actually mechanical solutions. And when that's all said and done, it's things, they open up the fan coil units, they're in the chases. They're not things that you visually would ever know the building's touched. And those elements are, funds are available through major maintenance to do that work. So the funding and the reason I kind of give this reminder is at the time of Trainer's very wrong cost estimating with major maintenance, they felt that you could do a lot of the things you wanted to achieve with the budget that you have. However, if you've requested them to do full design, if you did want to pull all the triggers, then that would be additional funding that you would seek. So it might be that if funds were available, you would still want to pick and choose how far you want to go.
It's really helpful, Madam Chairman. Thank you, Wendy, for that. Dave, so has any work been done on the HVAC or canisters, for lack of a better term? I'm not calling them what they are, but we talked about, you know, some noise that is generated through some of these things that we could literally through major maintenance dollars go in. And has any of that work commenced, or is that something that's just on the board for the future?
Mr. Chairman, it's on the board for the future. We've done some work on the HVAC in the executive branch area.
Yeah.
But as this goes for the sound, the acoustics project, we haven't done anything yet.
Yeah. Those were the kind of things that really made sense to me, you know, the noise that was coming out in the governor's meeting room, for example, just by working on those sorts of things, we can quiet some noise down. Okay, that's really helpful. And like I said, we have a couple of meetings coming up that's really going to help me to help everyone know where we stand. So.
Well, and I think having a session come and go, we will hopefully have some direction then as well, once we have our buffet of options.
Well, just some of this, I think will be very helpful to outline, considering we have so many new members coming into this body. I think it's going to be really important for them to know that some of what we're doing is not extravagance. It is functional and it's important, and it's acoustical. So, yeah, I think that's something for us all to remember, because we may be asked about something like that. You know, what are you putting curtains up there for? Or whatever.
To be fancy. Great. Okay. Anything else on acoustics? Okay, I sense the answer to this, but is there any public comment? Okay.
Is there anyone streaming in? So, Madam Chairman, lacking public comment, I did want to bring up that, one of the representatives from the north part of the state, contacted me and, had an interest in whether or not, he and a constituent could donate something to the state cap. We run into that every now and then. In fact, that is not anything new, as our committee has already found out, right? So I encouraged him, if he wanted to provide some public comment today, he could do that. But just know that we may have things coming in the future. That's what our subcommittee does. We deal with things like that, right? And Wendy, maybe you have some thoughts, but
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I actually, that triggered my memory that you have also worked through curation policies. And we put that process on hold, waiting for the hiring of a capital curator. And so I don't know, Nathan, if you wanna, you've kind of taken a look at those, but our thought was generally that we would take that back up. That would be new work of the committee too. All of this is coming into place, and I think it's probably becoming even more apparent that there's less places for things to go. And so as your subcommittee is finishing up the exhibit portion of this, it's a good time to take a look at those draft policies. And then those would also go on through this process I described. You are not the body to adopt those policies. That will be through the State Museum, but it would obviously be a State Building Commission and a Management Council review once you have made your recommendations to those bodies.
well, Madam Chairman, I think it's wonderful that we're in a position where people think so much of this state capitol. Much because of the work that's been done over the last decade, that's helped, but it also, I think, going to bring quite a bit of that kind of attention, right? And so we'll have to be prepared for that. Wonderful of people to offer amazing things. I remember a couple of years ago, one of the senators had connections and could have brought some painting from somewhere. And of course, as Wendy points out, it's so wonderful an offer, but there isn't very many places where we can put certain things, so. Yeah, maybe our curator had.
I can store them in my.
Really?
I think that's oh, sorry. go
I was
ahead.
gonna say, maybe our curator has a thought or two on that front.
Absolutely, yeah, Mr. Chairman, Chairman. I did go through those draft policies, maybe I think it was week 1 on the job. And I need to get back to those. So I will prioritize that, get back to those, have a discussion with Kevin and the core team. And see if we can get something for, I don't know, too ambitious, just an initial draft for upcoming consideration. I'll put it that way. But I do, a very important point, and I think something we need to get in place sooner than later.
And I have really sort of, I don't want to say forgotten about them, but they have way been on the back burner. And I think we don't want to wait till we have a hot button issue and then trying to draft rules or policies to fit it. So we've just had a lot of other stuff going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the sooner we can get that in front of the two bodies when it is not about a certain thing, but we're looking at it globally would be very important.
Yeah, good thoughts, Madam Chairman. I think, I know this group will always give proper consideration to anything that comes to the table. It's just that, as we discovered a couple of years ago and over these months, usually it's a bigger deal than it just donating something to the Capitol. It becomes a bigger thing, and so be aware of that. So that's it, Chairman. Thanks for letting me throw that out.
Okay, as previously noted, our next meeting is December 17th, and I would picture that's gonna be fairly robust. So probably longer than we have been going. That fair?
Yeah, and then Madam Chair, members of the committee, I do want to remind you, I will be emailing you a file stage link today to review the graphic panels for the public meeting rooms and the Capitol Auditorium and some kind of the miscellaneous Capitol extension content for your final review. And that is, the deadline for review for you is before the 20th, so the 19th, because we'll be debriefing. And that is to meet the installation deadline before the end of the year. So that will be coming to you this afternoon, and we'd like for your eyes on that content.
Madam Chairman, a big thanks to all of our staff on several different fronts. And also to DI. Thanks for continuing to lean into the blocking sled, and let's keep pushing it down the field, and we're gonna get to the end zone here pretty soon, but a lot of work, and it's as we run into little things, let's just overcome them and let's get this thing to the finish.
Okay, so with that, do we want to adjourn this portion of the meeting, maybe take a 5-minute break, and what's best for everybody? Maybe reconvene out by not the statues because they're moved.
Where they used to be.
Former statue.
Former statue.
The area formerly known as Statue Row.
Capitol Gallery.
Great. Yeah, thanks, everybody. Blocking them.